Hi, welcome back to StoryHive On Location Kelowna. I'm Robb and we are live in location in Kelowna with another episode brought to you with support from TELUS STORYHIVE. Today I'm speaking with Damon Gregory, the creating and brainchild of EMC Studios. And we're going to be learning all of the incredible things that he has created and started over in the Okanagan over the last few years at least. So
been here 5 years now.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Rob. Appreciate it.
And giving me your time.
Yep.
Let's start off with who you are, where you're from.
Damon Gregory, originally from Tucson, Arizona. I've been in the Okanagan since the early 80s and a number of different industries. Worked in hospitality, Big White first few years here, bartending, serving, that kind of life. Graduated into construction. I worked by day and by night, continue the restaurant. Back and forth to the States a bunch. Eventually getting in deeper into construction. Built my own house here back in the 90s. And tired of that and the restaurant business and decided I'm going to do something I always wanted to do. I'm going to be an actor. I had looked at a collection of name tags from various restaurants and places I'd worked and realized, all I ever did was put on a name tag and a certain set of clothes and talk a certain way, and I was that thing. So I thought, what better way to take all of that and maybe make a living at it? So, no, honestly, I had always wanted to be an actor, just didn't have the courage to say so until later in life. And after the 20 plus years in the restaurant business, which I call the other theater, I decided this is it. I'm going to just drop it all. I went to Vancouver, got into a full-time acting program, and I was working within the first 6 months doing short films, got an agent, and was off to the races. Till, and this is a long answer to your simple question.
It's all good.
Until such time as I didn't know how to deal with the roller coaster. You know, the highs of getting the part and the lows of not. It was a very busy time. 1997 in Vancouver was the first year we'd hit $1 billion in production in the province, which was unbelievable. I was auditioning 3 or 4 times a day, running all over the Lower Mainland to various sites. And there was work, but I had kids that were getting a little taller and said, I'll put this down. So in 2003, after the big fire here, I just sort of packed it all in and went back to the States. And I've been building luxury houses up until the pandemic. That was my thing.
Is that when you started the studio here?
So yeah, a great part of the story I like to tell is I was in my door and window showroom in Ventura, California. Beautiful little space down there. Seaside beach town, you know. Guy walks into the showroom and got his blueprints and introduces himself. His name was Seamus, and says, I got a project coming up. I heard you're the best in the biz. I want to talk details, but let's just get to know each other first. So we sat down at the conference table and he started asking some questions and then sort of just stopped and said, you know, you strike me as a bit more of a creative guy than this nuts and bolts thing. Let me ask you a question, he says. If you could get up tomorrow and do whatever you want to do, what would it be? And I said, go back to my acting career. And he said, so what are you doing here sitting talking to me? And I made the decision in that moment. That was 2018. It took some time. I was in the middle of a number of projects. Had made the decision in that moment. I'm going home to Canada and get back to my acting career. And then the pandemic hit, and it gave me even more time to sort everything out, make the huge shift. Got through that. I was stuck in a warehouse in Palm Springs, California for the summer of 2020. Not a great time or place to be, but made the best of it. Whittled everything down to just what I could throw in my trailer for tools with the plan B that I will work as a handyman until my career gets back in place. Never had I felt so much space as when I got on the highway to come home to Canada. It just felt like Ah, man, no stress, you know, it was great. So came back to Kelowna. My mom is still here, and it was time to sort of take in a look on her as she's in her 90s now. And saw the industry back up and running right away, found an agent, and found a space, realizing that self-taping was the new norm. So I realized, okay, that and some basic teaching, which I had done, improv and audition skills, the things I focused on in acting school. Found the space, and funny how I even found the space to continue the doors opening of the universe in this way. I had looked in Castanet and all the places, made a list of things, was driving around looking at buildings, trying to find locations that I could afford, and it was raining, and I stopped out front here on Ellis Street, and I was like, this place doesn't exist. So sat there for a minute and just said, just relax. The right thing will come up. And then I look out the window. The sign in the window says for lease. So I called the number and looked up the info, and it took me a little time to get with the landlord, but this is where I've been since May of 2021. So we are now coming up on 5 years. That's
an incredible story to go from the States to Canada, back and forth constantly, but to settle on acting in the Okanagan. What really drew you to the Okanagan versus being anywhere else? Is it because of the growing industry here?
Well, that's another interesting part of the story. I think all of this is, as somebody pointed out to me the other day, this is just what's calling you back. The 2003, after the fire that we had here in Kelowna, and I had finished a renovation for my mom at a house in Peachland, and realizing, okay, I got to give up my career for a while. I'm just going to put it down. I'm going to get into something. I'll go deep into construction and do the right thing, so to speak. And but I had been here 2002. A friend and I saw an ad in the paper, did something, went around with a camera and started shooting location scouting for the newly formed film commission, thinking, oh, this is a whole new thing. Maybe this is where I'm meant to be. Did that for a little while. Nothing really came of it, but I could see that the industry was starting to grow in 2002, 2003. And literally, as I was crossing the border at Oroville, saying out loud, wouldn't it be great if when I get done what I'm doing in 15 or 20 years and I come back to Canada to resume my acting career, wouldn't it be great if there was enough to do in the Okanagan that I wouldn't have to go back to Vancouver? Not knowing that that would actually happen, and it has happened. We had a pretty vibrant scene here. I think Kelowna was actually the first market or production to get up and running during the pandemic. I think by June 20th there was cameras on the ground and people were doing their thing and helping the industry as I did with the taping, and I met a whole new community, and it was just the intent to dive back in fully and completely. And it's sort of catching up to me, if that's the right way to say it. I didn't find either, it didn't seem realistic I could go back to Vancouver with my mom aging in, still in place at her house, and realizing what's going to be needed. It wasn't really realistic, and I didn't wanna. It was my plan B to do the handyman thing and audition again, but I was happy here. I have a lot of friends here, and I'm well connected, and so I just put myself fully into the industry. And since then, I feel some of my community and the people that I've met here through the studio, we have actually turned our attention to helping to build the industry. So after a couple of years here, very busy years, even during the strike or leading up to it, 2022, a colleague and I decided to start the Okanagan TV and Film Industry Forum as a way to share with the community what the industry is, what its impact is to our economy and to the workforce in all things, both in front of the camera and behind, a very unique formula. We just thought, let's get industry leaders together to tell their career journey, much like what you're doing here. And we put together a panel of 8 people, and Dalias and I got the microphones on and treated it sort of like a Phil Donahue episode of sorts, walking through the crowd with Q&A, but everybody had 10 or 15 minutes to tell their career journey, which is fascinating because you hear somebody start over here and they end up over here because it called them in. And so that proved to be a good formula. We've had 4 forums since, our last one being last May of 2025. And at such time, the natural progression was where we are now, to announce the Okanagan International Film Festival, which has always been an idea of mine, and the time seems right. The best way we could market our industry to the world and bring more production is to show people what there is. But conversely, also to educate and show the community what cinema really is about, not what they see just on the movie screen or on their streaming channels. But what got me interested in film festival was when I was in Vancouver in '97. I volunteered for the Vancouver International Film Festival. And if you volunteered for 8 little 4-hour shifts at the table giving tickets, you could get a full festival pass. And I love movies. So I went to a lot of movies. And one of the first ones I saw was this incredible Japanese film called Hanabi. And I went, I never would have seen this if I wasn't at this festival. And it just blew me away. And thought, wouldn't it be great one day to have a film festival in Kelowna? So again, ideas that ruminate in my head somehow manifest. And I think that's the wonderful thing about life. And that's sort of a message I carry around. I think I live by the rule of, I don't want to say I coulda. Mm-hmm. I want to say I did. Because coulda really is a regret, would seem to me. So
yeah, and that's one thing I'm heavily agree on is if you believe you can do it, try, and if you fail, whatever.
Well, there really is no failure in a sense of
Mm-hmm.
trying, because then you can say, well, I did that and it didn't work for me.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe that's not where I'm meant to be. But I feel that life is a journey, and it's your own adventure. You make it what it is. And I've just growing up in the household I did with parents who were musicians and artists all around, it was just, I think it was just bred in that I see all these people doing what they want and not conforming, which I suppose I don't conform. It's just been the way I've lived my life, and I don't have any regrets. I don't want to carry them. Yeah.
In your time from acting, because you started acting, put it down for 10, 15 years, and then came back to it and decided this is what you want to do full time. Going from having to travel all over the Lower Mainland to do your auditions to self-taping, how beneficial has that been for you?
Yeah, it's been huge. It was a big change in the industry, obviously. At first, it was like, oh, good, I can do as many takes as I need. You get a chance to see yourself. You go, oh, I want to do that again. To helping others. You know, I'm sure in this room we have probably done thousands of auditions and tens of thousands of takes, if you will, between classes and the auditions. Had 2022 and 23 were just incredibly busy till the point we were actually adding a second room because there was so much traffic in here. It changed a lot of things. There's goods and bad. I miss being in the room and interacting with people and getting a vibe or giving them something different because they can ask for it. You would get notes and maybe a second opportunity. Can you try it a little more like this? But also there were times early in my career where the nerves were just over the top, and I didn't know how to. I blew so many auditions early in my career, like my agent calling me up, what was that? What did you do? You pissed her off. Yeah, because I'm human. I made mistakes. I got nervous. Learned to overcome that. But now, with the self-tape, what's great, and having seen so many actors through the process, and just trusting gut and really being able to just throw it out there. And the great place to be that I feel right now for myself is, and I learned from others, I always say the Bryan Cranston rule of once he, deep in his career, realized my job is to show them what I think the character is, not do what they want. That's a great way to approach it. Mm-hmm. So I love auditioning. I'm a professional auditioner. And there's times I go to work and do the same thing on set. It's just being in the zone, and it's allowed for that.
It's definitely difficult going from, because I got into background and into acting at just before the pandemic. I started off with background acting and was doing auditions, and the first audition to get my agents when it was face-to-face was that connection. Mm-hmm. And you can feel their emotions coming off of what you are giving them. Mm-hmm. And that's way different than staring at the camera trying to create this character. Mm-hmm. And that was where I started to struggle with self-taping auditions, just because it's not the same.
One of the benefits that I had, and I understand that, and that's the thing. I had actually 3 weeks ago, my agent called me on a Thursday and said, I got you an in-person audition tomorrow night in Vancouver at 6:00. Oh, okay. So I'm going to drive down to Vancouver, and had my 3 minutes in the room and drove all the way home. But it was great to have those people back in there. But the other benefit of the self-tape is here at the studio, the number of people that were coming from out of town. So I had Vancouver actors and Toronto actors and Montreal actors and Calgary actors and Winnipeg actors that are coming through here, and watching them work was fascinating because they would do a take. I wouldn't offer notes unless they asked, or I would say, I've got an idea for you or something like this. But generally they'd do a take and go, let me do that again. They'd do another take, and I said, you want to see it? And they'd say, no, that felt right. And that's the trust that I think has come through the time, and now knowing instead of 15 takes, I'm doing 1 or 2. And that's where you need to be on set as well, because you're not getting multiple opportunities. You got to nail it out of the gate and have it down, because they want to move on. It's always about the the money.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it costs a lot of money to have a camera there, and the crew behind it. That's one thing people don't realize is the overall cost of what it takes to actually just film a 2-minute scene for a film is mind-blowing, the expenses behind it. But to do doing it yourself, I find it gives you that independence. And like you were saying, they would do a take, say, let me redo that, and then that one feels right. That reminds me of being in studio as a musician, where that was the take. There was no little flubs or nothing, and I gave it my all. Like, that's the one, we're not changing it.
Yeah, it's about here. It's not so much in the head. It's different too over time. When I started my career, we were on film, which is even more challenging because there's only the 1 or 2, and there's only 3.5 minutes of tape in that can, and you've got to get it down in 1 or 2 takes. Where now, when you blow it, and I suppose you could do the same then, but just stop, give a second, keep going, or start over. There's, that ability to let that camera run all that time. So they can reset, adjust lights, do all that stuff. So it's a lot more fluid, which is cool.
It was really cool to walk into the industry without any previous experience too, and seeing how it works, and then being amongst the actors and watching how they think about their characters, how some people are in their character even when they're in their trailers or off scene. And it's like, those are my favorite actors to work with on set. You're like, you love this.
Yeah.
Like, this is you.
Yeah.
And I think that shines in anybody. And it kind of the same with you, with like, you never wanted to give it up. You knew you had to for responsibilities and to do what was right, but to come back at it later in life, relatively, where most people would have been like, I gave up on my dream. And for you to be like, no, I put it on the back burner and came back, it's extremely inspiring.
Thanks. Funny as it was, all that time off, I was still, roles were finding me. I would see something at the university nearby, Southern California. I was in Santa Barbara area. Did a couple of short films that won some little awards for the filmmakers, and then an independent feature that somebody told me about that I got a big role in. And so I never really was entirely put away, but what it also gave me time to do, I moved to a very small town in Santa Barbara County outside of Santa Barbara, over the hills, a little town called Santa Ynez. And there's 3 little towns, Santa Ynez, Solvang, and Buellton, and then there's, so what there was there, maybe 10,000 people in the valley, and I was itching still to do something creative. Give me a guitar, I'll go to the open mic. I'll do whatever. There's a need to perform, I guess is what I'm saying. So I found a little community theater group that were doing musical reviews, and that was nothing I had ever done before. So I got my singing voice on, and I learned a couple of steps, and we did old Broadway tunes, and it was just fun with this group of people. So it allowed me a chance to explore another part of my talent, which I really enjoyed. And it was a whole new experience to be live and on stage and going, I'm doing this thing that's not my comfort zone, but I'm going to make it work. Had some fun times with that. So,
do you think stepping out of your comfort zone as an actor, and not necessarily doing speech roles or film, but stepping into that Broadway or the theater aspect, kind of brings back to roots, if you were ever into drama as a child?
So I wasn't into drama as a child. I mean, drama was my life, maybe. I was a character kid. I bounced off the walls and did my comedy routine, and I could do accents and imitate, and that was my shtick as a kid. And you grow into class clown. I changed schools a lot, so humor was the safety zone. I've since learned that through years of counseling, that's a part. The comedy is, I always felt in our home, whatever wasn't stable, if everybody was laughing, I was safe.
Fair enough.
And that was important. So I would play these things, but that's the thing. I would never, if somebody said, well, come and do this play, I wouldn't know how to do that. That would be, and so but ever since I was 3 or 4, we had a unique setup in Tucson. There was a film set outside of town called Old Tucson, and it was a Western film set, tons of movies done there. And it was also a theme park, so you could go on the weekends, and we'd bring visitors who came out from the east, and you'd go over there because it was also adjacent to the Desert Museum, which was world-renowned, as it still is. And so you'd go to this little western town, and they had the little putt-putt cars that went around this thing. They were old-fashioned, like Model Ts, and then there was a train that went around, and every hour on the hour in the main street, they would reenact a bank robbery with the stunt actors. And you'd hear this, and they'd shoot each other and roll off the roof and all this stuff. And I was just thinking, this is what I want to do. And so it was in there, but I could never really, for whatever reasons, my insecurity, I suppose, didn't allow me to say it out loud. I thought it, I wanted it. After high school, I moved to California, and it was even near Hollywood, and I was thinking, is this the time? And didn't have the courage. And ultimately, when I went to it later in life, what I found was me. The self-exploration and the understanding and the tearing down of all of the stuff, I figured out who I was. I wouldn't have been ready any sooner in life. I'm on the right timeline. That's about all I can say.
That's a great way to look at it. And it's kind of I always bring this up because it seems to be a recurring topic that comes up in the show, is that people are starting to follow their dreams later in life because it's what they want, and also because they're ready for it at that point in their mind. Like you've got to grow, you've got to go through failures, you've got to go through down points and stuff to find where you got to hit rock bottom to climb out to find out where you're going to be after. And I find that that's a common denominator between all creatives that I've spoken with. Actors are always one that, for me, in the industry of arts, are extremely unique because you guys have the ability to grasp emotion, portray it, and make people feel it. As we're like musicians like myself, we can make people feel it. But people don't fully grasp the metaphors or the concepts. So as an actor, what's been the hardest thing for you to overcome in your career besides personal changes?
Well, that self-doubt, I think early on, even now, I said to my agent recently, I look at my new demo reel and I go, is any of this, I watch it and I go, okay, but I'm still worried about the imposter syndrome. Is this really believable, any of this stuff? And that's probably the hardest thing, is to just really grab onto and own your ability, I think has been the biggest challenge. And it's not an arrogance or an ego. I think it's exactly the opposite. As I don't believe ego has a place in the industry, and it's around all the time, and it really is ruinous in a way. It's not helpful. It blocks a lot of creativity and a lot of trust and a lot of things. So, but owning your stuff and knowing you got the goods and being ready is your job. You know, I'm the instrument. I got to stay together, and you go to your mental health meetings and you do what you have to do, and you keep yourself ready, because at any moment they're going to say go, and you have to have. So the hardest part has just been in really owning and trusting that.
Do you find that, how do I phrase this? When you're taking on a role and you're diving into the character, has there ever been a point where the character that you're creating you feel is not right but is ideal for the film? So the way you're portraying the character, because each actor they're given basic details, and then they have to go off of that, of what they're going to sound like, how they speak, how they look at somebody on camera. And over the years of progression through acting, you can see 70s acting compared to now is a lot less believable. Films nowadays are very believable, and having to create that character and be able to do somebody else, is that difficult to try and separate from yourself sometimes?
Well, that's a really good question, and I was talking about this in a sense recently. I read for a part in an audition that was a really foul person, and it felt like to me, this is something I want to go for, because at the level where I'm at, and grateful for all of it, but in the realm of this principal actor, large principal actor, it's expository material. You're saying, as I always say, it's, well, he went that away role, right? You're not really given a chance to dive in very deep. But on stage, I've done some great projects in the last few years where you get time with that character. And I don't know myself, it's a really good question, because it's complicated and it's different for every actor, is what I'll say. I often joke, but the truth is I like what William Shatner has to say about acting, where in interviews he says, there's no real thing, there's no method, there's no character, just say the words. That's about as hard as it is. I love that, because if you ask me what my process is, I have no idea. I really don't. I just trust the text. If I can just say those words with conviction, vulnerability, sensitivity, anger, whatever if I can just get from that writing what it is and just regurgitate that, that's the truth that I'm after. And when you ask if I'm involved with that, yeah, it's all me, because I've felt all those things. And I think bringing yourself and using what many have as the toolbox of emotional trauma or joy or whatever you've got in your toolbox that's all sitting right in here, that's all it is. Just apply that to the text. Be who I am. I haven't had many chances in film or TV yet to go deeper than that. But I don't know that I'll approach it any differently. I think I'm just going to read the text and go, oh, I know how that feels. and give that to the other actor and connect in that moment. I think that's probably the hardest part for a lot of actors, is that having that trust, but that's where it's at.
Yeah, working with somebody else that you've never worked with is first time on set, and you've never met them before, you never worked with them. It's definitely hard to read them as a person and the characters they're portraying, and it takes a little bit of time, which is hard when the industry is constantly moving and you can't slow down to do that, right? So I could see that being very difficult, and having to be somebody who's very intelligent and can see the situation, read it really well, and blend to that situation. I think that's where I was always more, I'm good as a background actor.
That's good. Yeah,
that's what I'm good at,
okay,
right?
Walk again.
And I always found it entertaining because it is very difficult. Even background acting is it's not a difficult thing, but you see the whole process rolling, and then you put your mind in the directors and the production staff that is running it. I give kudos to those guys. The organization skills they have is just mind-blowing. How one day they're in Peachland, fully set up filming. The next day they're in West Kelowna filming fully, and then they're in the Delta Grand or whatever, and it's the Kelowna film industry in the 5 years that I've seen it from when I started has blown up. Every day I'm driving by the H2O center, and there's just circus everywhere. It's all you see is signs pointing to circus and set, and you're it's really nice to see that we've taken, I don't want to say taken, because Vancouver still has a very vibrant scene, but during COVID, Kelowna became the movie filming capital of Canada, and that to me was exactly what the Okanagan needed.
It is, and there's a reason for that a lot of people aren't aware of, and it's one of the things I try to help people understand. Is there's an additional tax incentive to come to the Okanagan. So when you come to British Columbia, you get the 36% tax credit. That's what built Vancouver as a service industry to the TV and film production of the US. You get the exchange on the dollar, the tax incentive. Let's make a movie in Vancouver. That's what built the industry so quickly and boldly. If you come to the interior, you get another 12.5%.
Oh, wow.
That's incentive. And we have great locations, and we have talented actors. There's a lot of great union actors that have relocated up here, which is great. A lot of non-union actors, very talented. I've seen through the studio here probably a dozen or more of my students go from non-actor to now a union card because of just following the steps. And it is good here that we now have probably 2 or 3 productions at a time going on, which is great for the economy. We had the mayor, we had a fundraiser the other night for Oscars night. We did a gala, and the mayor came, spoke about the industry, and we had a long conversation before and after he got up, because it was just during one of the commercial breaks. And we'd invited him before, and it was finally, he's like, yeah, I need to get on this. I see what it's doing. The economic impact is in the hundreds of millions of dollars directly to the city and to the valley. That's nothing that you shake your head at or you say, I don't want that. He basically said to me, tell me what you guys need. What do we need to do? What do I need to do to help you build this industry? Which is awesome. That's about all I can say. And it's welcoming, it's supportive, and with that kind of assistance and that kind of perspective of our industry, I think we're only going to continue. I feel 2026 will be for the Okanagan what 1997 was for Vancouver, that we're going to hit a new high and it's never going to go back. We're not going, as my agent always says, we're not going backwards. We're only going forwards. Your career is taking time, but it's all happening at the right space and time. It's very exciting.
It makes me think of a buddy I grew up with who wrote a song years and years ago called Kelowna. And it's just seems to be that it's like, yep, it is actually turning into Kelowna. Like, we are the California of Canada, and now with the film industry coming here, it's undeniable at this point. The cool thing to hear is that the mayor is behind it. It would be amazing to see them do that with all industries of our arts, because the Okanagan is absolutely packed with mind-blowing artists, from music to actors to painters to glass blowers. There's something about this valley. I don't know what it is, and it's why I've never left, but there's a magical feeling here that inspires people to just create, and they never stop. And it just continues to push and push and push. And you see with like the film festivals that you're putting on and like Ignite the Arts, there's just so much beautiful things happening within the region that I can't wait to see what it's going to be like in 10 years, in 15 years, what the Okanagan's going to be known for. Because the last 25 years has been wine. Now it's film. Where can we push it?
Well, I don't know. Did you see the article that came out last week?
Probably not.
And a story that somebody sent me, a Castanet story, that Kelowna's been named number 2 in the country for arts and culture. That's massive. I've seen it in the time that I've been here, and it's interesting because my mom, who's been a big part of this arts and culture community, came from bigger market. She was playing with San Francisco Symphony and the opera as a vocal coach, working with world-class talent, and coming to little Kelowna, semi-retiring. Started with the symphony, then branched off into doing some of her own theater and opera, which was really the foundation of, and she was swimming upstream, trying to find market, if you will. And we just completed, friends and I, that I helped through TELUS STORYHIVE, as a matter of fact, completed a documentary on her called Rosalind France Live, and you'll see it on the TELUS YouTube channel. And go check it out, because it's an interesting view of a woman who came here in 1980, who didn't stop working. She had really just begun and only retired because of the pandemic. She was at Kelowna Actor Studio as music director, and up until she was 90. She'd still be there if she hadn't been sent home. And that's it's a pretty fascinating story. So that's a long-term view, because she said, well, what I got here, all it was a bunch of farmers. They don't want to hear about opera. But it's changed. And I think our population supports more, because we're getting more educated and cultured people coming in from various markets. But to your point as well, there is an amazing creativity here. Especially, I loved the fine art, the Okanagan style, if you will, that goes way back to Indigenous. And one of our local chiefs for the West Bank First Nation, and Derrickson, that was Noel Derrickson, who created essentially the Okanagan style of Indigenous art, and you can trace it back, and before there and before there and before there. So
it's really cool, because we spoke with a artist from Penticton, and her name is Winona Paul, and she does her own form of Haida art. And that's kind of what I said to her. I was like, how does it feel to be like one of the people who's creating what is going to be known as Penticton Indian Band's artwork? And you could see the thought click in her mind, and she was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
Right? And we have such a young culture in Canada. BC specifically, the West Coast is very young. We were the Wild West. And we're so spread far apart from city to city and city that each little section of BC has its own arts. And that's where I love the Okanagans, because I've seen Vancouver's, I've seen the Islands. The Islands is amazing. but it's that's the culture that's there, and to see the culture being not necessarily accepted, because it's always been accepted, but it's now being pushed and thriving. That it's really nice to see our Indigenous local artists getting the recognition they deserve.
Exactly.
And have you ever worked with Indigenous actors, or have you had any come through here?
No, and we have tried very hard to encourage the participation. We do have someone on the board of our nonprofit, the TV and Film Industry Society, who is West Bank First Nation, and we're trying to. Let's talk truth. There's a lot of. It's hard to what do I say? To repair the damage to the trust of generations.
It is.
And to say the door is open, I'll take it back though. One of my dearest, longest friends is Dene, lives on the west side. And when I got back and got started into my career again, I said, hey, Judy, why don't you come over and get involved? And she hadn't done it since high school. She'd done some drama, but she popped right back into it and landed some roles and some stuff. But her frustration was that she's reading for things that aren't truly her culture. And she wasn't getting the opportunities, and still isn't. And it frustrates her, but she's just as happy to do her Indigenous craft work than it is to go and do an audition to be some white person.
And that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I totally get it. And I think
it would be cool to see a push for Indigenous filmmakers, and that's why I love StoryHive, is they have a lot of opportunities for that, and some of the films that have come out are mind-blowingly good. And there's so many like little points and things that I'd love to do, like aside from the programs themselves, but to really dive into the social aspect of the cultural aspects and the arts of our local Indigenous, because it's mind-blowing how beautiful it is, and the talent that comes out of here is
it's for sure.
It's crazy.
And we're hoping with the festival that we can bridge some of these divides. And our Okanagan International Film Festival, for good reason, we chose the name because it is the entire region. And also, in looking it up, Okanagan loosely translates to gathering. So our festival is a gathering of cinema, culture, and creativity. And we want to focus on things, over time as this grows, but mixing the cultures, especially in food and celebration, art. We have had an offer from Noel's estate. I've asked that we will use one of his pieces of art as our first-year poster, which I still need to get a look at that. But I want to honor where I am. This I'm grateful to be here and very fortunate, but I recognize much more than just an acknowledgement, which is a spoken honoring. I'm truly grateful and feel strongly about who was here before and respect that. I'm just grateful that I get to be here, but I know I wasn't here first, and it's not really mine. So I want to share that. I really think I want to expose it for what it is. And our feeling and hope is over time that this Kelowna International Film Festival, or Okanagan International Film Festival here in Kelowna, will expand to music and art and be a fall festival of all things.
I love that.
Yeah, but I'm just going to focus on the film part.
Yes, no, I totally understand.
And hopefully the music will come and the art will come, and we can all celebrate and again expose our community to what there is. It's a lot of people are here. They're transplants. One of the things I didn't like about California, trying living there 3 times in my life, and it made it work. Aside from the small town where I felt really at home, California is just a bunch of transient. Nobody's really from there, and that's sort of unfortunate how Kelowna has become. You rarely find anybody born or raised here. Yourself, I think.
I'm actually from Penticton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh, from the valley.
Yeah, I'm from the valley, but
That's got its downsides, but
Mm-hmm.
it always, I think Kelowna's, the people that are coming here are finding that, this is something we could stay with for a while.
and I think that you doing the film festival and creating that, and among all the other things that you do locally, is you giving back, and your ability to give back to the region, not just the industry.
Yeah.
And I think that speaks volumes for who you are as a character, as your character.
Thanks. I also, we do want to have a focus on the next generation. This isn't, and this is the purpose of what I do here, is to open people's eyes to what exists in the industry, to themselves as who they are, and find that and become a better person for the sake of humanity. But our next generation needs this understanding of what this industry is, what cinema truly is. And I think with the change in distribution that this platform is, and we want to show those kids. So one day is all dedicated just to high school students for the festival. Screenings, conversation, speakers, little workshops, things that they can really go, all right, this is a viable career option. We don't want it to be looked at as something that's not attainable. We want to show that this is accessible. And the festival is legacy. It's just, I love film. And when you see festival film, you'll realize, wow, I never would have seen that if I hadn't gone to the festival. And that's the joy of it. And also seeing the similarities of other cultures, and that we can find as humankind, we're more alike than not. Interesting story. This is so far off, but it was funny for me. That's what really opened my mind to the power of film. Was at Vancouver International Film Festival. I think it was 1999. I was managing the Vancouver Centre, 2 theaters there, number 1 and number 2. And we had a problem that year. Every single film that I was showing over those 2.5 weeks had a problem. Somebody didn't show up, the film didn't show, the director didn't show, the camera caught fire, the projector burned through one. So there's an Icelandic film that comes, it's in theater number 2. I go in there to make my announcement, and the announcement is, we so apologize, the film that you're about to see is from Iceland, and we got the Icelandic version. There are no subtitles. Expecting 450 people to walk out. Nobody left. They watched the movie, and they understood it for what it was, because it's storytelling. And if it's visual and it's a good film, you get what they're saying. And that was just fascinating to see. Nobody walked out. They all learned a little Icelandic, I think.
And I think that's a good testament to a well-filmed movie, because if it sucked, they would have walked out. But if it didn't, but it captured them to the point where they don't need to hear the words. And I think that that's why theater is very magical. And like when soldiers would go over to Japan and they would see the cultural arts and theater that was going on there and what it was in the States, and it's completely different. And the cultures throughout the world all have theater and acting and dance and music, and that's just inevitable.
It's
in human in our existence. And that's what I find extremely beautiful about film and music, is it's the 2 things that, besides food, really connect people, is art. At the end of the day, we look at ancient cultures as, what do we remember them for? Is their art. We don't really remember them for other than that, their architecture, their art, their food. To be part of that is, this is why I love being a creative, because we are the ones who, at the end of the day, they're not going to remember the carpenter. They're not going to remember the electrician, you know what I mean? They're going to remember the artists. So it's good to be one of those.
Yeah, no, it's great. And I do tell this to people as they come through the intro session or the class or whatever. And just, I wanted to make a point too, and something back to you said about finding who you are or whatever that is, that that's what I try to encourage more than anything. And the people that I touch through the studio, if they're coming in for an intro class and I show them the gobbledygook about the industry and how it functions, both sides of the camera. But then I have an improv 101 class that I now have more non-actors coming through than actors. Basically helping people, which is what worked for me, is finding out, who am I? And how do I see the world? How's my brain function? How do I learn to trust and connect with people without taking too long? How to get to the point and all. And I can't tell you, a handful at least of people that have come back to the studio to say, because of that, I totally changed my life. I quit my job. I decided to go into film. There's a gal just texted me a few weeks ago. She was here from Iran. She's in science research that has something to do with AI. She's on this visa for this. Young gal, took a couple acting classes, got into it, moved to Vancouver, and just wrote to me and said, I've just applied to the UBC acting program, because she doesn't want to do what she's doing anymore. She found something that speaks to her, and that is art, and that is portrayal, and that is all those things. So I find that fascinating. But the other thing I was going to say, for film, for me, and it's speaking to you and what you just said, the years in the restaurant business I enjoyed so much because the time is just so fun. It's high stress, it's urgent, it's it's all those things, but it's real. And I think that's why I call it the other theater, because it's drama. You know, why is that show The Bear so popular? Why was, Anthony Bourdain taking his career and putting it into book to tell about the truth of that industry? It's a raw place to be, and you got to be a certain sort to get through it. Loved it, but there's not much to show for it. Memories, photos, stories. Construction. Scars. Yeah, scars, exactly. The tips go away, right? You spend the money. It's all gone.
Construction, the same thing.
Construction, the one thing you have, misfits for sure, coming together to work together. You've got numerous trades. You've got a lot of management. There's a lot of things going on. But every day you get to go, look what we've done. And when it's all done, you say, look at that beautiful building. And I spent time in design and build. So taking it from here and putting it all together and actually going, look, it's real now. That's great. But then you take the key and you hand it to the owner, and you don't have anything to do with it anymore. You can only look at it from the outside.
Drive by, I built that. I helped build that.
Yeah.
I poured the concrete on that.
I did. I could drive you around Kelowna and Arizona and California and show you all the things I built, but they're not mine. With film, I find a combination of the two. A real urgent, stressful environment with a lot of people that you just have to get along with in the moment, because we got to get this done. When the film is done, you all get to stand back and go, look what we did. But you will always be a part of that. And nobody can take that away. And it will last forever. And it will affect people. And it will change their minds. It will inspire them. It will make them feel. It's an eternal fire. It's always there to view and view again and view again and view again. And that's incredible. Plus you're, again, working with a bunch of people that aren't necessarily fit. There's a lot of misfits in the film industry, and it's a beautiful thing because there's a place for everybody.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, especially when you're sitting and camera's not rolling and you're sitting with everybody and you're just observing everyone's different personalities. Yeah. There's an old nice little granny. There's some teenagers who probably do some things on the weekend. That guy looks like a biker. He's a lawyer.
Yeah.
That's a mom. Like everyone's so different, but they're all there with that same passion, and that kind of builds that family. That's why I love and hated being on set. It was, you don't get to see a lot of those people again. You build that connection when you're on set for 3 days straight of 12-hour shifts, 14-hour shifts, and then you go home, and then all of a sudden you're like, man, what happened to Brian?
Yeah.
Like, where did Brian end up? And how many movies has he been in since? Like, those things that make me sad, like watching movies that I've been in and remembering the moments when you're like banging on the window for a hockey scene, and it's just like three friends in the background. And you never see them again.
No.
And that's one thing that really was hard to deal with in the industry, because I met a lot of really cool people. One of my favorite people I've got to meet was my casting director, and now she's directing, Angela Quinn.
Mm-hmm.
She is incredible, and now she's directing films, and I'm like, I can't wait to sit down with Angela and have a conversation of like when we met. As me just being a background actor, and she was like, hey, you can have the union one today. You can have the union one today. Like, she just loved me, and that always, I have huge respect for her. Now to see her 4 years later directing her own films is like mind-blowing.
To that point too, and for anybody listening who's thinking about getting into this industry, it's a big part of what I chime in on, what you're saying. Do at least 30 to 40 days of background before you go get an agent and start auditioning, because you will learn more about the industry sitting and watching it work than I could teach you in, a series of classes. I can give the basics and the outline. We have a great class called On Set Experience, so you're prepared, whether you want to be a background actor or you're transitioning from background and want to get in, just the things you need to know so that it takes the anxiety down. But the learning you get from doing background is immeasurable, and you may see, oh, that looks like an interesting job, and realize that you're more destined for crew than you are for this. And I see it happen a lot. People start going to be an actor, and then they realize, that set deck thing looks really cool, set decoration. Yeah, I could see myself doing that, because I like to work with color, and so it's fascinating. And you get paid to go to school.
It's such the only thing that I don't enjoy now about films is being, after watching background, like the setups, and is now I'm so focused on the background and the sets, and I'm like, oh, that snow is fake.
Yeah.
Oh, that's just like a piece of fabric, and like things like that. Then I'm like, oh, it's actually really ruined big productions for me, because they still use the same techniques that a Hallmark film is using or something, right? So you're like, there's a give and take there.
Once you get in the industry, you'll never watch a movie the same way.
I've been trying to explain
You're
that.
You're always going, oh, they got that wrong, or that continuity, or hair's over here one time and then it's over here, and you're like,
the lighting's all off. Yeah, those little things that you're like, no one would pay attention other than us.
It's got to be a really good movie for me to get in. And that's, again, why we want to show at the festival. What we want to show is just the best quality that we can find in all the different categories.
It's true. If there was, so I got two final questions for you, and they both kind of, you've already touched base on them, but I want to extend a little bit. If there was one thing that you could change in our local film industry, what would it be?
That's a tough question.
Because you're already working towards the changes you want, but if there was one specific thing that is maybe a hindrance towards you progressing on pushing the industry.
Yeah, I'd say we need more venues. I think if that's it, it's a part of it. I mean, as we're developing the festival, where are we going to screen? I got to go to the big people, the landmarks and the Cineplex, and get something. Why don't we have a dedicated art? Well, yeah, you know what I would change? I'll get right to it. I wouldn't let the city do what they did to the Paramount. We lost a great venue. We need more theaters. That's one thing.
And I think that's the drawing away from a younger crowd and inspiring the underground to get into theater is that the lack of people going to theaters and the money coming in is what's difficult. And that's the same thing with music industry. We have two venues here, and the amount of bands that are coming out of the Okanagan that are signing to record labels and now touring worldwide, and no one even knows they're from Kelowna, is extremely sad. Like the three biggest DJs of the dubstep era are from Kelowna. Datsik, Excision, and Downlink. All from Kelowna.
Okay.
And nobody notices that because they never perform at home.
We made a trailer for the last forum, 15 minutes long, of 50 movies that were filmed here in the Okanagan that you would never have an idea that we're filmed here. It was, people are like, what? That was made here? Yeah. And so there's that. So yes, bring back the Paramount. We don't need another Tim Hortons. Thank you very much.
Yeah, especially one that no one goes to. That's the saddest part about it.
Yeah.
Is it's ideal spot and no one goes into
I
there.
love that theater. It was so classic.
And the other question is, you've already touched base on about getting into background acting and learning the industry from that perspective, but if someone would wanted to become an actor, what is their first initial steps? Because that is always the most intimidating thing, is how do I start this career without any influence?
Well, that's what I try to address. Just sharing with people the 30 years I've been in this industry, how to make those first steps. The first thing is say it out loud that you want to do it. Come to an intro session. I do them once or twice a month on a Saturday. It's an hour. I'll paint the picture of what it is, and I'll give you a checklist of things to do to get yourself going. But I'd say before that, when you say I want to be an actor, make sure you understand why. Because you gotta it's got to be, I feel, for the right reasons. You're not stepping into this for fame or fortune. You're doing it because it's a calling. It's a need, as Barbara Streisand said, in her career at one point. She says, I don't have to sing, I need to sing. And I know that feeling as a performer. I just got to be doing something. And if I'm not auditioning, I got to have something else, So understand why. And then just take that first step. I'll tell you, the hardest one is the first. And that's cliche. And I'm not here to, somebody way smarter than I said that it begins every journey with just that single step. And if you do that, you will find your way. And that's just that lesson we've been talking about. Don't sit around and say, well, I coulda, because you will regret. Just try it. If you fall down, great. Failure is a wonderful teacher. And it's not even failure. It's just, how did we all learn to walk, for God's sake? I don't remember all those falls. That was a long time ago.
It's true.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you for your time. This has been an incredibly inspiring conversation. And
Thank you.
Your story and what you do for the community we need more people like you that see the problem and are willing to fix it without worrying about having somebody help them. It just needs to be done. Let's do it.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Thank you for your time. And
Pleasure.
if you'd like to be a guest on the show, there will be a QR code at the bottom of the screen that you can scan, and it'll take you to a form to fill out, and we will be in contact with you. Once again, I'm Robb O'Day, and this has been StoryHive On Location Kelowna. We'll see you guys next time.
Thanks.